Alright, in this set of videos I'm going to talk about how to turn latitude longitude into MGRS and how to turn MGRS into latitude longitude. There's only a few people that understand the formulas that are behind this, and so I want to put it on video so that everybody can have it. The first thing I want to talk about is how is latitude and longitude built. So here I have the Earth. North Pole, South Pole. The lines that run from the North Pole to the South Pole are called longitude lines, but they're used to measure how far east and west we are. So that's our ruler for measuring how far east and west we are. It starts over here in England, right here. Well, let's start just south of Western Africa. This point right here is our special point. We'll zoom in there. This has coordinates 0 degrees latitude and 0 degrees longitude. That's where everything is measured from. As I go to the left, the latitude is still 0, but the longitude is turning negative. So we go around to the west, and that is negative longitude. As I go to the east, that's positive longitude. 180 degrees negative and 180 degrees positive takes us around to the other side of the world where the international date line is. Let me zoom in just a little bit here so I can get the 1 degree line. So there's 0, 0, 1 degree longitude, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and as I go north, 1 degree latitude, and so on. And it tiles out like that. These aren't exactly squares because they get skinnier at the top. But I'm going to go to the other side of the world. Probably this one. Yeah, this one right here. This is the exact opposite side of the world from that point south of Western Africa that was 0, 0. This point is 0 degrees latitude, negative 180 degrees longitude, but it's also a positive 180 degrees longitude. So it comes all the way around the Earth to this spot. So negative 179, negative 178, and as I go up, as I go north, 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and on this side, that's 179, this corner, 178, 70, and all that. So that is how the entire Earth can be measured with latitude and longitude, which is a great system, but there is other systems to measure coordinates on the Earth, and the one I'm going to look at next is called MGRS. Now MGRS, I'm going to start here instead of at 0, 0. I'm going to start here. So here's our international date line running right down like this, where negative 180 degrees meets with a positive 180 degrees, and here's the equator. This first rectangle that I'm looking at here, this is called 1 November. The dimensions on this rectangle, it's not exactly a rectangle because it's skinnier at the top than it is at the bottom. The dimensions on this rectangle are 6 degrees wide and 8 degrees tall. So latitude longitude wise, this is 0, 0 and 180 degrees, or a negative 180 degrees. And then as I go to this corner, that is that is 6 degrees, 6 degrees in longitude difference. So the equator is here, negative 180 degrees. This is a negative 174 degrees. So it's 6 degrees wide, and then as we go up, it's 8 degrees tall. So 0 degrees latitude, 8 degrees latitude. You can kind of see that down here in the corner. So 0 degrees latitude and 8 degrees latitude. And this is 8 degrees latitude, negative 174 degrees longitude. So each one of these pseudo-rectangles is 6 degrees by 8 degrees tall. So 360 degrees all the way around the Earth, divided into 6-degree chunks, makes 60 rectangles. 1, 2, 3, 4, come all the way around. 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. So an entire row of 60 rectangles. All of them have a November. 1 November, 2 November, 3 November, 58 November, 59 November, 60 November. So this entire row is all November, and there's 60 rectangles. When I go north a row, these are papa. 1 papa, 2 papa, 3 papa, blah, blah, blah. 58 papa, 59 papa, 60 papa. And so this is the November row, this is the papa row, this is the Quebec row, this is the Mike row, this is the Lima row. And as we go up to the north, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, and then these rectangles are a little bit longer. The reason they're longer is so that we could get over the top of Greenland, over the top of these islands of Canada, and this top part of Russia. We made these rectangles a little bit longer. There are some exceptions to all the business here. These 2 rectangles are made extra wide to cover this island here. There are some other weird ones. Let's see. There's a weird one in Europe. Where is it? Right there. That one's an extra wide just so they can get this part here. But most of the time it's 6 degrees wide and 8 degrees tall. Now, I'm going to zoom in on a square. I'll do this one that is Portugal. I'm going to zoom in here. So Morocco and Portugal and Spain. I'm going to zoom in there. Let it think for a second. And it goes into these squares. The squares are tiles of the Earth. Each square is 100,000 meters by 100,000 meters, or 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers. And the way they're tiled is we make this line right down the center of the grid square. You see this yellow dot and this yellow dot. We do a line right down the center and we tile out from that center line out to the edge, and from the center line out to the edge. When I get close to the edge, I don't get a whole square. It gets sliced a little bit. And each of the squares have 2 letters. This square is November uniform. The 29 is the 29th grid square from the international date line. Sierra is north of the equator. And then the November uniform is this green square. If I go to the east of it, this is Papa uniform, November, Papa. Mike, November, Papa, Rome, Quebec, and then as I get over to the other grid square, it's a whole different set of letters. Let's go down to the equator so we can see how those are. So here's the equator. So here's 30 November grid square. Let's see, Papa Alpha, Tango. We'd like to see where an alpha is. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one. So we have a line down the center. The 31 November has a line down the center, down to the equator. So alpha is the equator tile, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. That last letter, as I count up to, I'll just count on my way to the North Pole, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, and I'll just keep cycling through the letters as I go up north. But the letter before the alpha is a delta. Delta Alpha, Charlie Alpha, Bravo Alpha, Alpha Alpha. So the second to last letter, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Hotel. That should be India right here. That Romeo should be in India. Kilo, Lima, and so on. Alpha Alpha, Zulu Foxtrot. Okay, so these are all alphas. The odd grid zones are all alphas, but the even grid zones start out at Foxtrot. I think they did that so that we wouldn't get confused right here, that we could realize that's a grid zone, that's Foxtrot, that's alpha, just so that we could realize they're different grid zones. So the even grid zones start off at Foxtrot at the equator, Go Hotel. The odd grid zones start at alpha. Okay, so that's how, oh, and inside each one of those squares, we measure 100,000 meters all the way across and 100,000 meters tall. So this is 0, 0, and as I go across, how many meters is it across and how many meters high to get a point that's inside here. So this point with the crosshairs is 66641. That's 66,641 meters to the east and 86,885 meters up. As I keep going up, it would start counting again when I get to the next grid square. So the entire world is tiled in these grid squares. 1,200 grid zones, and inside the grid zones, grid squares. Inside the grid squares is meters. And that is how we have the entire world mapped out. There is one more that we'll touch on just a little bit, universal UTM. And it's very similar to MGRS, but instead of starting over at each grid square, they go from the equator all the way up to the top, and from the equator all the way down. So big long strips of data. They still have a line that runs down the center that we measure from, but they are in strips instead of grid zones. All right, so that is how the world is broken out into the 3 different coordinate systems. In the next video, we'll start talking about how to convert from one to the other.